What's up guys, Meredith with ExtremeTerrain.com, and today we are checking out the Superlift 4-inch dual rate coil suspension lift kit with Fox 2.0 reservoir shocks fitting all 2020 and newer JT Gladiators, excluding those Mojave models. Now, having a suspension that you really can rely on, whether you are on the dirt 24/7 or sticking to the street, is utterly important, and this kit will be an excellent investment in your Gladiator if that's what you're looking for out of a quality kit. Now, this will take your factory suspension and, compared to other entry-level kits, to the next level with a fully inclusive kit that's going to maintain a comfortable OE ride while you're driving around in the street and drastically increase your truck's performance off-road, even with a more aggressive 4-inch lift height. Now, as you can see on the table, this is going to come with a lot, and this kit is going to offer your JT a laundry list of benefits, including the obvious increased height, which will help when it comes to ground clearance off-road and fitting up to a 37-inch tire, as well as just having an overall defined and aggressive stance to it. And I do want to mention quickly that this kit maxes out at a 37-inch tire, and anything larger than that will require some modification, so just keep that in the back of your mind when you're looking at this kit. Now, also a wheel with 4 3/4 inches of back spacing or less is also recommended. However, the stock wheels will mount back up. Now, nonetheless, the included dual rate springs and the Fox 2.0 reservoir shocks will offer a lot in the performance and the ride, and the track bar as well as the control arms are going to help accommodate while also giving you a bit more articulation out of the system. Now, getting into the springs, the dual rate springs here will offer more of that wheel travel without unseating, and it's going to provide a good balance for those smaller bumps and movement on the road with the initial rate, and the secondary rate will allow comfort in that larger movement when your axle is doing a lot of work off-road. Now, the shocks included will also be more of a higher level option thanks to the high flow piston and external reservoirs here, which are going to increase the valving, which is essentially just going to keep the ride much more comfortable and allow a lot more oil into the shock to keep it cool and working efficiently for whatever terrain that you're taking your JT on. Now, mostly everything here besides the shocks are going to be made of a heavy-duty steel material and powder-coated black for optimal protection. Now, when it comes to the control arms as well as the track bar, they are going to have a similar OE style, but they are going to, again, allow more articulation because of the leverage on those sleeves there, especially with the control arms. Now, the track bar will also be made of a tube construction, offering a lot of strength out of that setup, and will be adjustable. So both the track bar and the control arms will be able to recenter the axle and roll the axle to the correct position for a proper pinion angle and ultimately accommodate for the 4 inches of lift, which won't just give you a stable drive, but also reduce excessive wear down the line. Now, like I said, these shocks will be a bit more advanced, and it does show in their construction, so stick with me when I rattle off these numbers, but these will have a 2-inch 6061 T6 aluminum body and a 2-inch smoothbore reservoir, which essentially means that they are going to be tough. They are going to be anodized as well to resist any corrosion and look new over time. The piston rods here will also be 5/8-inch hard chrome plated heat treated alloy steel, which is a mouthful, but essentially that will mean that these are going to reduce any bending for proper function when you're taking your Jeep off-road and reduce any nicks or eliminate any nicks at all, which will keep this seal here working properly over time. Now, they are also going to reduce any cavitation or what's more commonly known as shock fade down the line, even with the trail beatings that these may receive because of this construction. Now, this system also works just fine with these stock StabiliTrak and anti-skid control features, so if you do have those equipped on your JT, there's no need to worry there. With a premium and inclusive lift kit, you can assume that this is going to be set at more of a premium price point, and it's going to come in at about $2,800. Now, what I will say about this is that it's going to be a one-stop shop, so you don't have to add anything onto this, of course, if you don't want to, and the ride and performance that you get with this will match the quality of this kit. Now, again, I think this is definitely for somebody who is looking to take their suspension to the next level and wants to invest in one that's not going to have them questioning when it comes to the performance, and is definitely one that's going to be built to last. Now, I'm not gonna lie here, install is definitely going to be a bit more difficult, especially with the amount of components that you get out of this kit. So it's definitely gonna be a 3 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. Now, unless you're experienced with mechanic work and have some standard and specialty tools, I would recommend taking your JT to a trusted shop. Nonetheless, if you do have all of that, it should take you about 4 hours, give or take, to get the job done. Now, at this point, we can head over to our shop. We are going to show you a detailed breakdown on how this suspension is put onto the JT. So that is going to wrap it up for my review. Let's go ahead and get into that install.
Tools required for this install include a couple different size impact guns, an electric ratchet, adjustable wrench, needle nose pliers, scissors or diagonal cutters, 6mm and 5/16 Allen wrenches, flathead screwdriver, clip remover tool, 13, 18, 19, 21, and 24mm wrenches, a marker, a couple different size swivel adapters, a ratchet, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 21mm sockets, a couple different size extensions, a caliper hook, bungee cord, 10, 18, 19, and 21mm swivel sockets, a pry bar, pole jacks or jack stands, and a ratchet strap. You'll also need a 7/32 inch drill bit, zip ties, and Loctite to complete this install.
What's up, guys? Today we're installing a lift kit on our Gladiator, so let's get started.
So starting off on the front, the first thing we need to do is remove our sway bar end links from each side. I've got an 18mm swivel socket and 18mm wrench to take these off. So now for our lower mount, we're gonna get an 18mm wrench on the nut side, 18mm socket on the bolt side to pop that out. And then we can grab an 18mm socket for our nut up top. Next, we can remove the 21mm bolt holding in our track bar on the axle side. Now, you're gonna wanna make sure that your axle is supported here because it will shift a little bit once you remove that bolt. So I've got a 21mm socket, and we can pull that bolt out. Next, we can follow our track bar up to our upper mount and take a 21mm wrench and socket to remove that bolt. And then with both bolts removed, we can remove our track bar. Next, we can come underneath to our passenger side and disconnect our connector here. You can use a flathead screwdriver to pull back on that white locking tab, and then you can press down to remove the connector. And then if you follow the harness up, there's a push clip right here. Ours is broken, and there's another push clip up here. So we'll take a clip remover tool, pop that out to free up our harness. Next, we can take a 15mm socket to remove this nut holding our brake line on. Pop that out of the way. I'm just gonna throw our nut back on. Then we'll do that same thing on the other side. Next, we can remove the 4 15mm bolts holding our drive shaft to our front diff. Now I've got a bungee cord here so that we can hang this up so we don't put any weight on it. Before you do this, you're gonna wanna take a marker and make a mark. That way you can align it when we go to put it back together. So I'm gonna be making that mark first. And then I'll add our bungee cord. And then we can grab our 15mm socket to remove our 4 bolts. Next, we can disconnect this vent tube. So you'll want to grab a pair of needle nose pliers to pinch that clamp. And then you can just work this backwards until it pops off. Next, we can come down right in front of our shock mount and disconnect this 10mm bolt holding our brake line in place. And then we do that same thing on the other side. Next, we can remove the bolt in our lower shock mount using an 18mm socket and wrench. And now we can raise our pole jack up to free up our bolt. Now we can follow our shock up to our upper mount, pull back on our fender liner, and grab an 18mm socket to remove our bolt. And then we can remove our shock and do the same thing on the other side. Next, we can start lowering our pole jacks to drop our axle until we have enough clearance to get our springs out. I'm just going to be going back and forth here. And now with our axle dropped down low enough, we can remove our spring. Pull that sway bar down and out of the way. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Next, we can remove our lower arm. We have a 21mm bolt and 24mm nut on both of our mounts. So I've got a 24mm wrench and 21mm socket to remove these. Now moving on to the rear, the first thing we're going to do is remove our sway bar end links as well as this 10mm bolt holding our brake line bracket in place. So I've got an 18mm socket to remove our nut and bolt. And then we'll grab a 10mm socket for our brake line bolt. And then we can pop that out of place. So next we're going to be removing our brake caliper. We have two 10mm bolts holding that in, as well as a 10mm bolt holding this brake line bracket into place. I've got a caliper hook up here on our frame so that we can hang it and not put any tension on our brake line. So we'll grab a 10mm socket to pop these out. Pop that out of place. Just throw that bolt back so we don't lose it. And then we can remove the two bolts on our caliper. And then we can slide our caliper off and hook it up onto our hook. Next, we can disconnect the bolt holding in our track bar on the driver's side. I've got a 21mm socket to pop this off. You want to make sure you have a couple pole jacks supporting your rear axle or jack stands because it will shift once you pull this out. Next, we can remove our shock. We have a 21mm bolt and nut at the bottom and top. So we'll get a 21mm socket and wrench to remove these. And then you can raise up your axle to get that bolt to spin. And then pull that the rest of the way out. And then we'll do that same thing up top. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. And now we can lower down our pole jacks to lower our axle so that we can get our two springs out. And now with enough slack on our axle, we can pull up to remove our spring. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side. Next, we can remove our upper arms. Now, just like on the front, we have a 21mm bolt and a 24mm nut. So we'll get a 21mm socket and 24mm wrench on here to remove it. So now we can install our new lower arm. So we're gonna slide this into our upper mount first, and then get our bolt installed into our lower mount. Thread our nut onto the backside. And then we can line this up. You're gonna have to push forward on the axle just a little bit to get that bolt to slide through. And now we can thread our nut onto the other side of our upper bolt. And then we'll take our 21mm socket and 24mm wrench to tighten both of these bolts down. And you can do that same thing on the other side. Next, we can install our spring with our bump stop spacer. Now these are labeled 01 and 02. 1 is for the driver's side, 2 is for the passenger side. On the bump stop spacer, you want to make sure the bigger hole is pointed up and the smaller hole is down. So we'll slide this into place and get our spacer in there. You won't be able to slide your spacer in once your spring is installed. Now we can begin to twist on our pole jack to raise up our axle. While you're doing this, keep an eye on your spring to make sure it's seating into that lower perch properly. Next, we can install the bolt through our bump stop spacer. We've got a flat washer on there. Drop that into the hole, shake it through, and then slide that through the hole. And then we can grab a 14mm socket with an extension and drop that down. And then take our nut plate through here, get it lined up and started by hand. And then once we have that started by hand, we can add our ratchet and tighten it down. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. Next, we can install our shock. Now you want the line to be going towards the front of the truck. And then we'll slide it up into place and start getting our bolt through. Next, we can get our shock into our lower mount until we can slide our bolt in. And then you might need to use a pry bar to kind of manipulate the shock to get it through the other side. So we'll get this brake line bracket out of the way until we can get it to the other side. And then we can thread our nut on. And then we'll take an 18mm socket and wrench to tighten that down. And now we can go back up top and take an 18mm socket to tighten down our upper shock bolt. And then you can do the same thing on the other side. Now the next thing we need to do is install the bracket for our reservoir. Now this is going to mount right up here at the front here. And then we're going to be mounting our reservoir to the bracket using zip ties. We're going to run the zip ties through these rectangular holes and around our reservoir. Now for demonstration purposes, we're not going to be installing this, but the way you're going to be doing that is you're going to line this up. You're going to drill 2 7/32 inch holes, and then you'll be installing the self-tapping screws included in the kit. After you drill your holes, you're going to want to take a paint marker to paint up the edges to make sure that it doesn't rust. Now we already have some holes here in the frame, so we're going to be running our zip ties through that since you are going to be seeing the zip ties either way. And we'll just mount it straight there. So now we're going to take our zip tie and we're going to bend the end here to make a little hook. And then we can slide that in through one hole and out through the other. And then we'll do the same thing down here using the existing holes in our frame. And we can slide our reservoir into place
We'll tuck the hose underneath our fender liner and then connect our zip tie. Now once we have our zip ties in place, you can take a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters and cut off the excess of the zip ties. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. So now we're ready to assemble our front sway bar end links, and while we're at it, we've got our back on the table so we can get these assembled as well. We have our bushings that we're going to be sliding in to the holes, as well as our sleeves that are going to go inside our bushing. So we'll slide these into place, get them pressed down into our sway bar end link, and then we can install our sleeves. So now we can start out by sliding our bushings into the hole. And then we can press these down into place. And then we can slide our sleeves in. And then we'll do the same thing for our other front end link. And move to our rears. And then we'll do that same thing for our other rear. So now we can install our new sway bar end link. For the top, we're going to be using our bolt with a flat washer, and then a flat washer and a lock nut on the other side. And on the bottom, we're going to be reusing our factory hardware. So we'll pull up on the sway bar to get that in place. Thread our nut on the other side. And now we can take an 18mm socket and wrench for our bottom bolt to tighten that down. And then we'll switch to our 19mm socket and wrench for our top bolt. And then we can do that same thing on the other side. The only difference is you're going to have that nut with the tab on it instead of an actual nut for the passenger side. Next, we can reinstall our drive shaft. So you're going to line up your two alignment marks that you made, and then you can get your drive shaft into place. You're going to want to clean the thread locker off of your bolts that you removed and add some new thread locker onto them. And then we can thread these into place. Now once you have these threaded in by hand, you can take a 15mm socket to tighten them down. Next, we can reinstall our vent tube. So we'll get those needle nose pliers again to pinch our clamp. And then slide that on. And release our clamp. Next, we can reattach our two brake line brackets. Now we're going to be reusing the 10mm bolt for this bracket and the 15mm nut for this bracket. And then we'll take a 10mm socket to tighten down our bolt. And then our 15mm socket for our nut. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. Next, we can go back to the passenger side of our axle and reconnect our connector. And push in the white locking tab. And then you can reconnect your two push clips. The one right here for ours is broken, but we can reconnect the push clip on our upper arm. Next, we can install our new track bar. So we'll get this into our upper mount. And then get our bolt through and our nut on the other side. And then we can go to the mount on our axle. And now we can thread our factory hardware into the axle side. You can twist this nut to get it to line up. We'll slide our bolt through, get our nut plate on the back, thread our bolt into the nut plate. Now we can take a 21mm socket to tighten down the bolt on our axle side mount. And now for our upper mount, we can get a 21mm socket and 21mm wrench, tighten that down. Now once we have this installed, to adjust this, to tighten it, we're going to be turning this large nut towards us if you're standing at the front of the vehicle. And then once you have it where you want it, you can take an Allen wrench to tighten down these two bolts. Now you're going to want to get this close enough. It's not going to be perfect, but you're going to have to go to the alignment shop to get an alignment anyway. So we're just going to get this as close as we can. So you can take an adjustable wrench and twist this down. And then once you have that done, you can take a 5/16 Allen wrench and tighten down these bolts. So now we can install our new upper arm. These are the same exact part for both sides. So I'm going to slide it into the axle side first. Kind of have to wiggle it in. And then you can get a flathead screwdriver to align your hole. And then we'll get it into the upper mount. So now comes the fun part of getting our bolts back in. To do this, I'm going to get a pry bar behind here to pry forward. And I'm going to get a flathead screwdriver through the hole on the backside to make sure that we don't just pop this arm downward. And once we have that lined up, we can slide our bolt through. And then we can come to the other side. And then we can grab our nuts and get those threaded onto the back side. Now once we have those in place, we can grab a 21mm socket and 24mm wrench to tighten these down. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. So now we're ready to install our spring. So we're gonna get our factory spring isolator for the top. This little ridge here is gonna sit against the end of our spring. And then we can raise this up into place. Next we can install our bump stop spacer. So we'll lay that down. We have a bolt with a flat washer. That's going to be going through the holes in our bump stop. And then we have a washer and a nut for each of those. And then we can take a 13mm socket and 13mm wrench to tighten this down. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. So now we can get our shock and reservoir assembled. We have a bracket here that's going to hold them together. We can use a 6mm Allen wrench to tighten down the Allen bolt on the back of this, and this will clamp them together. So we'll just slide that over the shock body as well as the reservoir. And then we can flip this over and tighten it down. So now we'll just take that 6mm Allen wrench and tighten down that bolt.
to clamp these together. And then we can do that same thing for the other shock and get these installed on the truck. Now we're ready to install our shock using our factory hardware. Now for the bottom here, you might have to raise your axle up a little bit to get your hole to line up. And then we can get our nut on the back side. And then we can grab our 21mm socket and wrench and tighten this down. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. So now we're ready to install our brake line extension bracket. So we're gonna take our bolt with a flat washer and put it through this middle hole. And then we can put that through our brake line bracket and then reinstall our factory 10mm bolt where our original bracket was located. And then we'll take another flat washer and a nut. And now we can get a 13mm socket and wrench to tighten down that bolt. And then we'll pull this down into place and take a 10mm socket to tighten down our top bolt. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. Next, we can reinstall our brake caliper. It's our 10mm bolts. And then we can also reinstall our brake line bracket. Reclip that ABS line into place. And then we'll grab our 10mm socket and tighten all of that down. And now we can tighten down that brake bracket bolt. And then you can do the same thing on the other side. Next, we can install our sway bar end link. So we'll use our factory bolt up top and then a bolt with a flat washer. You might have to pull up on the sway bar a little bit to get that through. And then we'll go with another flat washer and locking nut on the back. And then for the bottom, we can take a 19mm socket and wrench to tighten that down. And then we'll switch to an 18mm socket for our top. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. Next, we can reinstall our track bar bolt. To do this, I've got a ratchet strap going hooked on this side of the axle, going all the way up to our upper mount. And now we can just ratchet the strap until our hole lines up and we can get our bolt through. And now once we have that installed, we can thread our nut plate onto the back side and then take a 21mm socket to tighten down the bolt. Now the last thing we need to do is install our carrier bearing spacers. So we have two 16mm bolts that we'll be removing. I have a pole jack here to support the weight of the drive shaft. We can take a 16mm socket and remove these bolts. Now we can lower down our pole jack to be able to fit our spacer in. Slide our spacer into place, slide our new bolt through. Now we'll raise our pole jack back up. And then we'll take a 17mm socket to tighten these two bolts down. Now once you have everything installed, you can throw your wheels on, lower the truck back down to the ground, and then once your suspension's under load, you can go back and torque everything down to the manufacturer's specifications.
So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Superlift 4-inch dual rate coil suspension lift kit with Fox 2.0 reservoir shocks for your 2020 and newer Gladiator JT, excluding Mojave. Thank you for watching, and for all things Gladiator, keep it right here at extremeterrain.com.